Congressman Dan Crenshaw is well known among CUFI members. He served our country as a U.S. Navy SEAL, deploying 5 times overseas, leaving the service with 2 Bronze Stars, 1 with Valor, the Purple Heart, the Navy Commendation Medal with Valor, among other honors. Now, he represents the 2nd District of Texas in the House of Representatives. He is a strong supporter of Israel and frequently calls out anti-Semitism. Representative Crenshaw has quickly become a leader in Congress and one CUFI is happy to call a friend. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to introduce Congressman Dan Crenshaw.
Hey everyone, I'm sorry we're going to miss you this year. And while we're not physically together, we are together in purpose, strong Israel and continuing the U.S.-Israel relationship. Now, a lot's changed since I joined you last year. At the beginning of this year, we ended the reign of Qasem Soleimani, and President Trump unveiled his bold vision for peace that establishes a responsible path forward without jeopardizing Israel's security. And at the end of the last month, President Trump signed into law the Never Again Education Act, so we can ensure American students learn about the Holocaust and anti-Semitism so that we can uphold the promise of never again. And while COVID-19 may be keeping us apart, it has not stopped Iran, who has continued their aggression in the region instead of taking care of its citizens who have suffered from the virus. They've continued to arm and fund Hezbollah in Lebanon. They continue to destabilize Iraq. And Iran has continued to provoke and threaten U.S. forces in the Arabian Gulf. While we focus on COVID, we cannot ignore the threats we and Israel face. And that's why 381 other representatives and I signed a letter calling for strong diplomatic action to ensure the conventional arms embargo against Iran does not expire in October. We cannot allow Iran to become an accepted importer or exporter of arms. Israel does not just face threats from Iran, but also from international institutions that single out the only Jewish state in the world. And that's why 261 other representatives and I signed a letter calling for an end to the politicization and abuse of the International Criminal Court and its targeting of the U.S. and Israel. We will continue our critical alliance and partnership, and we will not tie assistance to conditions some on the extreme end of the other side have called for. Our relationship, our security, and our future is too important. I look forward to joining you next year in person, but until then, stay safe, stay healthy, and God bless you. Thank you.
Prior to joining the Senate, Senator Jacky Rosen was a vocal leader in efforts to support Israel and the Jewish people. Today, she continues her efforts as the co-founder and co-chair of the Senate Bipartisan Task Force for Combating Anti-Semitism. Recently, she spearheaded the passage of the Never Again Education Act, a key piece of legislation the CUFI Action Fund sought to advance in Congress. Despite the delays as a result of the global pandemic, the bill passed the Senate and was signed into law by President Trump last month. This is an effort that would not have been possible without Senator Rosen's leadership. Please join me in welcoming the Senator from Nevada, Jacky Rosen.
Hi, I'm Jacky Rosen, and I'm proud to represent the great state of Nevada in the United States Senate. I'm also proud to hold the distinction of being the 3rd Jewish woman and the 1st former synagogue president elected to the Senate. And since coming to Congress, I've made it my mission to strengthen and build our country's relationship with Israel, our closest ally in the Middle East. The U.S.-Israel relationship has always been deeply personal to me. Israel is a beacon of democracy in the Middle East, a key strategic ally, and a major economic partner. With mounting threats in the region and rising anti-Semitism in the U.S. and around the globe, the bonds between the United States and Israel are more important now than they ever have been. That's why it's so important for Jews and non-Jewish allies to come together in support of Israel and the Jewish people. In fact, earlier this year, I introduced a bipartisan resolution calling on the UN to extend its arms embargo on Iran, restricting their conventional weapons and their ability to threaten Israel. And as co-chair of the Senate Bipartisan Task Force for Combating Anti-Semitism, amid rising anti-Semitism in the United States and around the globe, I'm glad to have allies like Senator Lankford helping to fight back against hate. Last month, with CUFI's help, the Senate passed and the President signed into law my bipartisan Never Again Education Act to help teach Holocaust education in our schools. and I look forward to continuing my bipartisan efforts in Congress to combat anti-Semitism, to strengthen the U.S.-Israel alliance, and to continue building our nation's security and economic partnership with Israel. Together, we can help the U.S.-Israel relationship continue to grow. Thank you.
Senator James Lankford is the co-founder and co-chair of the Senate Bipartisan Task Force for Combating Anti-Semitism, alongside Senator Jacky Rosen. In addition to his work in combating anti-Semitism, Senator Lankford is a strong defender of Israel. He has been a supporter of numerous pieces of legislation that work to strengthen the U.S.-Israel relationship, including the United States Israel Security Assistance Authorization Act of 2020. Prior to his time on Capitol Hill, the senator served students and families in ministry in Oklahoma for more than 20 years. Ladies and gentlemen, please give your attention to Senator James Lankford.
My name is James Lankford. I'm the senator from Oklahoma, and I wish I could get a chance to be able to be with you personally. I'm sure you wish that you could get a chance to be at this conference all together as well. It's an unusual time for us to be this separated and to not have the opportunity to be able to talk together. It's an unusual time in Israel as well. Of course, they always say it's an unusual time in Israel and a special time because of all that goes on in that area and, quite frankly, our unique relationship with the nation of Israel. For those of you that are standing up and speaking out and continuing to be able to talk about our unique relationship with Israel, thank you for doing that. It makes an incredible difference just in daily conversations with so much misinformation coming out about Israel and what's happening, to have people that are well educated and on the ground talking about our shared experience in technology and healthcare and what we're doing in defense, our shared values of democracy, of free speech, of a free press, of the opportunity to be able to people to live whatever faith they choose to have. All those are freedoms that we enjoy in America and they enjoy in Israel. That unique relationship is not just between our two nations, it's between a set of values that we want to be able to share with the rest of the world. It's also one of the things that I push for often in that area, to be able to talk about integrated business. It's not discussed a lot, but we should, I think, discuss it more. As we see Palestinians and Israelis working together side by side in the same business, as their families are working together, they understand that it is our families that we're trying to be able to better ourselves, trying to better our education, trying to better our opportunities for the future. Integrating our businesses and not keeping them separated as it has been in the past will make quite a difference. Even American policy has said we won't engage in anything past the green line. Well, that diminishes the opportunity to be able to engage in where businesses are already involved and where families that live in that area that don't want to stay separate, that want to be able to at least do business together, to literally form a pathway to peaceful cooperation. That opportunity can be found when people find opportunities to be able to work together. So I will continue to be able to bring up this simple idea of how we can have integrated business operations happening in Israel and how the strength of the Israeli economy can help all nations that are around them if they're willing to be able to partner with Israelis. I would tell you as well that there's a lot of conversation going on about anti-Semitism, and thanks for all of you that speak out against anti-Semitic comments and actions both in the United States and around the world. I partnered with Senator Jacky Rosen, and she and I have worked together to form the first ever bipartisan coalition in the Senate to push back on anti-Semitism. We're trying to be able to speak out and to be able to say, why would you ever want to judge someone based on their religious belief, their race, their preference, their faith, whatever it may be? Why would you do that? And especially in an area like anti-Semitism, which has been one of those issues where we find in communities and in nations where they have anti-Semitic conversation and they allow that to thrive, it grows into attacking not only Jews in their area, but multiple other people as well. She and I have worked together when we found areas where there were countries that were literally taking a roll, a registry of Jews in their communities, where we were able to call and to be able to speak with national leaders and to say, why are you doing this? They would back off and stop. These kind of statements, these kind of actions from places around the world and things that are happening here in the United States even at times, where we challenge people in anti-Semitic conversations and in dialogue, or to even talk about and push back on people that say, why are you being anti-Zionist, saying there shouldn't be a nation of Israel? That's just a simple way of saying we don't believe that the Jews should have their own country. We want to be able to speak out on that. We want to be able to push back on that and to be the first to step up and to say, there's a better way to do this. to live our values and our freedoms and to be able to honor that among all people. God bless you. Thanks for standing up. Thanks for doing and speaking the way that you are. Keep going. We need great voices out there.
Senator Tom Cotton left his law practice after the attacks of September 11th and joined the Army. He served nearly 5 years on active duty as an infantry officer. Senator Cotton's military decorations include the Bronze Star Medal, Combat Infantry Badge, and Ranger Tab. During his time in the Senate, he has sought to strengthen the U.S.-Israel strategic relationship, working to deepen our ties to Israel and to counter common enemies, such as Iran. Many consider him a rising star in the Republican Party, and CUFI is honored to include him as a friend in the Senate. Please give your attention to Senator Tom Cotton.
Hello to Christians United for Israel, and thanks to the Hagee family for inviting me once again to address your conference. Now, I know we all would have liked to meet in person for this event. But even though we're separated in body, we're united in spirit and in common cause as Christians and devoted supporters of the Jewish people and the State of Israel. We're fortunate to be living in a golden era for U.S.-Israeli relations. Our hands are no longer tied by President Obama and John Kerry's disastrous nuclear deal with Iran, which supercharged Iran's support for terrorist groups like Hezbollah without ending its quest for the bomb. The president ended that bad deal and replaced it with a maximum pressure campaign that has decimated Iran's economic and military might and neutralized its terrorist mastermind, Qasem Soleimani. Peace through strength has always been the best way to deal with the Ayatollahs in Tehran. And the last 6 months have proved this lesson once again. Iran has received a clear message that terrorist violence will be punished with swift and decisive action by the United States military. But defanging Iran is just one success in our strategy to advance America's interest in the Middle East and to keep our partner Israel safe. We also moved our embassy from Tel Aviv to Israel's eternal home, Jerusalem. Presidents had promised to take this step for decades, but they were too timid to act. President Trump acted. And just last year, the United States also recognized the Golan Heights as Israel's sovereign soil, an action I had urged for some time. This simple step strengthened Israel's hold over a strategic high ground. These are great victories for the United States and for Israel. But we all know that Israel's enemies are still many and powerful. Iran is down but not out. Anti-Israel agitators are ascendant in the media and on college campuses. And earlier this year, the United Nations so-called Human Rights Council even published a blacklist of companies that do business with Israelis in Judea and Samaria. The UN has always been a rogues gallery for tyrants and dictators, so it's no surprise that it's also pushing the anti-Semitic boycott, divestment, and sanctions campaign to weaken Israel. Our fight won't be over until these enemies are defeated and the world respects the legitimacy of the State of Israel. That's why I've introduced a bill with Senator Cruz to increase medical cooperation with Israel so we can beat the coronavirus and prepare for health challenges in the future. I also have a bipartisan bill to establish a technology working group between the American and Israeli militaries. This bill will ensure our militaries benefit from the strong culture of innovation that exists in both of our countries. These are just a few actions that we must take to strengthen the U.S.-Israel relationship in the months ahead. To get them done, we'll need strong leaders here in Washington and strong grassroots advocates across the country, which is why I'm humbled to address you today and proud to fight alongside you every day to defend Israel. God bless you and enjoy the rest of your conference.
Senator Marco Rubio is a strong supporter of the State of Israel and has sponsored multiple bills to strengthen the relationship between our two countries and protect Israel against those who seek to destroy her. Senator Rubio has taken a leadership role in fighting the BDS movement. He is the lead sponsor of the U.S.-Israel Security Assistance Authorization Act of 2020 and was one of the original co-sponsors of the recently passed Never Again Education Act. please give your attention to my friend and yours, Senator Marco Rubio.
As always, it's an honor to address each of you at Christians United for Israel. I wish we could do it in person. Obviously, the circumstances don't permit it during this very difficult time. It's even more difficult for the Jewish state of Israel. They face unprecedented threats to their very existence, surrounded virtually on every side by enemies that seek their destruction, also facing an unprecedented international effort to delegitimize their right to exist as a Jewish state. We've seen how that thought process has infiltrated academia and even some outlets in mainstream media in the United States and around the world. And that's why the work that you're doing now is more important than ever. Israel is the only pro-American, free enterprise democracy in the Middle East. It also happens to be among our strongest allies in the world, and a nation committed for the express and direct purpose that never again will there not be a homeland for the Jewish people if they face threats. So thank you for everything you do, standing with Israel, defending Israel. We will stand with you. God bless everything you're doing. God bless our country. God bless the state of Israel.
You may remember Senator Tim Scott from last year as he took the stage and brought powerful remarks rooted in biblical doctrine. He has served South Carolina in the U.S. Senate since 2013. During his tenure, he was the lead sponsor of the Anti-Semitism Awareness Act of 2019, which was the basis for President Trump's executive order on combating anti-Semitism last December. Senator Scott was also a co-sponsor of the recently enacted Never Again Education Act. Please give your attention to one of Israel's greatest friends and allies, Senator Tim Scott.
Hello, CUFI. I hope the Lord's with you. I know He is with the state of Israel because you are a friend of Israel. Psalms 122:6 reminds us that we should pray for the peace of Jerusalem, and all who do so will prosper. That is a blessing for those of us who pray for the state of Israel, and it certainly is a blessing for the Holy Land. It is so important that we all join hands and support the state of Israel. She needs our support. Her people enthusiastically appreciate our support, as it is the only democracy in the Middle East. I firsthand have had the opportunity to visit Israel a few years ago, and I'll tell you that breathing the air, touching the soil, seeing the scenes from the Bible, it is something I will never forget. In 2016, I first introduced the Bipartisan Anti-Semitism Awareness Act. It is crucial to have clear and concise language defining anti-Semitism to help defend against the violence and hatred that sometimes occurs on our nation's college campuses. Israel is our friend, one of the closest allies in the Middle East, and a democratic beacon of hope in a region of the world that has so little actual freedom. The unfortunate rise in these incidents across the country must be met with swift and unwavering condemnation. Thank you again for inviting me. May God continue to bless the United States, and may He continue to bless our friend, the state of Israel. Have a blessed day. God bless you.
Senator Marsha Blackburn is the junior senator from Tennessee who sits on several key Senate committees, including the Senate Armed Service and Judiciary Committees. Throughout her career in Washington, Senator Blackburn has been a strong supporter of the U.S.-Israel relationship. She was an early co-sponsor of the recently passed Never Again Education Act and has used her position to raise issues within the administration aimed at countering anti-Israel business practice and Iranian censorship of its own people. Please welcome Senator Marsha Blackburn.
Well, hello. I am U.S. Senator Marsha Blackburn, and I wish I could be with you in person, but I know that you're doing your Washington Summit as a virtual event. So many of those are taking place because of what we're dealing with COVID-19. And as you well know, our pro-Israel policymaking was on a good track. Prior to COVID, we anticipate that that is going to be able to continue. Don't see any change of that, even though we're all working in different circumstances. Right now, we're in process of marking up the Senate's version of the National Defense Authorization Act. I will tell you, I think when we finish this NDAA, you will be pleased with some of what we have in that legislation. Many of you have mentioned your interest in a letter that Senator Rosen and I are leading, urging our European Union member states to designate the political and military wings of Hezbollah as a terrorist organization. Since the U.S. made the designation in '97, Congress has used legislation, sanctions, and international pressure to encourage our European allies to follow suit. It is our hope that other countries will soon follow Germany's example, and they'll make that choice. We know that we will never eliminate anti-Semitic and anti-Israel attitudes if we only focus on the battlefield or only on what's said in legislatures and parliaments. We have to fight it in the hearts and minds of people all over the world. Last year, the EU Court of Justice ruled to permit anti-Israel business practices in 28 member states. In spite of the EU's long history of opposing BDS activities against Israel, they chose instead to embolden BDS activists. It wasn't the first time we've watched powerful institutions explain away their own anti-Semitism, and it certainly will not be the last. That is why we are remaining vigilant. That's where we all come in, every one of us. The only way to combat this is to shine a light on it. I hope that this year's gathering is one which you're going to feel like is worth your time, that you feel it is going to educate you, and it will thereby help you in educating others.
Senator Ted Cruz is no stranger to CUFI. He hails from the great state of Texas and has spoken at many CUFI events. The senator serves on the Senate Foreign Relations, Judiciary, Commerce, and Rules Committees. He has been a strong champion of the U.S.-Israel relationship and has sponsored multiple bills to ensure that Israel has the right to defend itself. He has led multiple CUFI legislative agenda items, including a bill to impose sanctions on those who use innocent civilians as human shields, as well as efforts to hold the Lebanese armed forces accountable for its cooperation with Hezbollah. Senator Cruz was also the lead sponsor of a bill recognizing Israel's sovereignty over the Golan Heights. Please welcome Senator Cruz.
God bless all the good men and women at CUFI. Thank you for being part of this gathering. Thank you for your incredible leadership. Thank you to my dear friends, John and Diana Hagee. Thank you for your leadership, mobilizing millions of believers in the United States and all across the world to stand with our dear friend and ally, the nation of Israel. You know, when I was first elected to the Senate 8 years ago, I resolved to be the strongest defender of Israel in the entire U.S. Senate. And I've worked every day to fulfill that commitment. And I got to say, in particular, the last 3.5 years in the Trump administration, we have seen such an extraordinary improvement in terms of our relationship, our friendship with Israel. And it's hard to find any foreign policy area in which there is a sharper change, a sharper divide from the Obama administration, which over and over again undermined Israel, tried to attack Prime Minister Netanyahu, tried to really weaken our friendship and alliance, to the Trump administration. Two decisions in particular that I want to point to that I think are critically important. The first is the decision to move the American embassy to Jerusalem, the once and eternal capital of Israel. That decision was a big battle within the Trump administration. The beginning of the administration, both the State Department and the Defense Department opposed moving our embassy. Here's what they argued. They argued if we move our embassy, it's going to infuriate the enemies of Israel. It's going to make them mad, and it's going to make them mad at us. I'll tell you, I engaged vigorously, directly, repeatedly with the president, taking on state, taking on defense, pushing back, pointing out the enemies of Israel, they already hate us, they already hate Israel. And that what was critical about moving the embassy is that it would provide clarity, clarity to America's friends and clarity to America's enemies, that we stand resolutely with Israel. We will not be backed down by the New York Times, by public opinion, by the criticism of the global media. Well, thankfully, the president made the right decision. He agreed with me, and he moved the embassy to Jerusalem. I had the incredible privilege of being there the day that embassy was opened. It happened to be, it was the 70th anniversary of the date of the creation of the modern state of Israel. And I got to say, it was beautiful. I've been to Israel many times. I have never seen such joy. I've never seen such celebration. People literally dancing in the streets. I remember visiting with Israelis, visiting with Americans who had come for that opening. One woman in particular was a Holocaust survivor. And she looked at me with tears running down her face. She said, I never thought I would live to see this day. What an amazing testament. Presidents of both parties, Republicans and Democrats, had promised to move our embassy to Jerusalem. But finally, this time, we did it. You know, the biggest reason that I told the president moving the embassy was important is that it would also draw a line in the sand, that we would be willing to stand up and defend Israel's national security and to defend Israel against her and our enemies. And I do not think it was coincidental that the very week we opened our embassy in Jerusalem is also the same week that the president announced he was withdrawing from the catastrophic Obama-Iran nuclear deal. That was the second national security decision I referenced, and it is the most important national security decision made in this administration. Once again, there was a fight within the administration. In fact, the battle lines were identical. Both the State Department and the Defense Department argued we should stay in Obama's disastrous Iran deal. They argued vigorously for staying in the deal, and once again, I made the case vigorously, aggressively, directly to the president. Pulling out of this deal is the most important thing we can do to defend America's security and to defend Israel's security. Sending over $100 billion to the Ayatollah Khamenei, who chants death to America, who chants death to Israel. There is a reason the Ayatollah refers to Israel as the little Satan and America as the great Satan, and giving the resources to the world's leading state sponsor of terrorism to use those resources to kill Americans, to kill Israelis. It was foolish. It was catastrophically wrong. Well, thankfully, the president agreed with me again, overruled both his State Department and the Defense Department. We pulled out of that deal, and since that deal, I have been steadily pushing at each and every stage to increase the pressure on the mullahs and the Ayatollah in Iran. That maximum pressure should mean maximum pressure. The improvements we've seen over the last 4 years in our relationship between America and Israel have been enormous. Prime Minister Netanyahu is a good friend. I've been blessed to spend a great deal of time with him. And today, thanks to the leadership of CUFI, thanks to the leadership of each of you, America's friendship and alliance with Israel is stronger than ever. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you for your advocacy on Capitol Hill. Thank you for going and visiting Republicans and going and visiting Democrats and making clear that America's interest and Israel's interest are intertwined. And thank you, finally, for your prayers. This is a gathering of prayer warriors. This is a gathering of men and women who spend time in the Word, who spend time on your knees, praying for Israel, praying for America, praying for our leaders, that we stand strong. Those prayers are needed at every time, but the prayers are needed today because each of you was put in this place, like Esther, for such a time as this. Thank you for your leadership. God bless you.
Hello, I'm Sandra Parker, Chairwoman of the Christians United for Israel Action Fund, and welcome to our CUFI Talking Point session. First of all, what a tremendous privilege it was to hear from this bipartisan group of congressional leaders who lead with exceptional moral clarity and are strong defenders of Israel in our nation's capital. Now, while I wish we were doing this face-to-face, I remain privileged to deliver CUFI's 3 legislative items, which we will be lobbying for this session. Very soon, each of you will receive an action alert to your email inbox with these items outlined. It's going to ask you to do the following. First, it's going to ask you to click a link to send an email to your elected officials, urging them to support CUFI's 3 legislative agenda items. Secondly, there will also be a link that enables you to easily tweet your elected officials so they know that you stand publicly with Israel and you want America to continue to do the same. And if you're able, the alert will also include links allowing you to get your elected officials' phone numbers. So please call members of Congress using the numbers provided at the links in the action alert, urging them to support CUFI's 2020 policy agenda. Now, to better prepare you to take action on behalf of Israel and the Jewish people, sharpen your pencils, and let's cover the legislative items that CUFI will be focused on in the upcoming weeks and months. I'll say this, if our talking points had a theme this year, it would be dollars and defense. At a time when some voices in Washington are threatening to condition or limit aid to the state of Israel, it is up to us to ensure that policies like these get passed in order to maintain Israel's qualitative military edge and keep Israel, and by extension America, safer and stronger. With that in mind, our first bill that we will be lobbying in support of is the United States Israel Security Assistance Authorization Act. It's a mouthful, and it's also known as S3176. This bill will codify the Memorandum of Understanding, which was signed by President Obama and Prime Minister Netanyahu in 2016. This 10-year military assistance agreement between our 2 nations is aimed at making sure Israel is secure in the face of regional enemies and keeps Israel, our cherished ally, as a cornerstone of U.S. national security in the Middle East. But why is this important? Right now, our nations have this memo. It's like a letter agreement, a handshake, for America to provide military assistance to Israel. But we want to go beyond this memo, and we want to make U.S. military assistance to Israel a law. Memos are easy to walk away from, and laws are more concrete. Therefore, ensuring that Israel gets the military assistance that it needs through year 2026 is of paramount importance. It will mean that Israel, regardless of who occupies the Oval Office, will get what it needs from America in terms of military aid. As an aside, I do want to say we use this word aid a lot, but I don't think that it's the best description of this exchange between our 2 nations. To provide aid implies that we're providing a gratuity or a unilateral exchange where only one person is giving and one person is getting, where there's a beneficiary and a benefactor. However, when the U.S. gives military assistance to Israel, it should be seen as more than just aid. It's actually quite the opposite. When we give money to Israel, we shouldn't see it as merely foreign aid, but we should see it as an investment of American resources. That's because when we invest in Israel, we get a return on that investment. For instance, Israel takes our military weapons and technology, improves upon them, and shares those improvements with the U.S. Or, in other instances, the money we give to Israel must be spent on military weapons made in the U.S. This supports both the American economy and workforce. So while this legislation previously passed the House, it now includes an additional authorization for $12 million that seeks to enhance partnerships between companies in the United States and Israel to develop innovative medical projects aimed at detecting, treating, and curing COVID-19. As such, it's going to return to the House, so we will be lobbying both the Senate and the House on this bill. Christians United for Israel is supporting S3176, and we ask that you urge your elected officials to do the same. It enhances U.S.-Israel cooperation, which is vital to the security and benefit of both our nations. Our second bill that we're supporting is the U.S. Military Capability Act, also known as S3775. This bill would establish a permanent and dedicated working group for U.S. national security officials and their counterparts in the Israeli government to work together on the research and development of technology used for national defense. Obviously, again, this bill is important for the security of both the United States and Israel. But let me try to paint a clearer picture of what this bill actually does. We've already discussed that it is imperative for Israel and the U.S. to work closely together on national security, but this bill makes that process more seamless. So what do I mean by that? Israel, as you know, is a nation surrounded by enemies, and as such, they have a real sense of urgency when it comes to national defense. Sometimes in the U.S., the bureaucratic quagmire can slow down cooperation. So this working group is aimed at removing these political bottlenecks. Make no mistake, we cannot allow our shared enemies to gain a competitive advantage, either militarily, technologically, or when it comes to research and development. The recent global pandemic has highlighted how important it is to collaborate with trusted allies on technology, research, and development. And when time is of the essence, working groups like this one will ensure the free flow of intelligence between our nations. As such, it is pivotal and could not be more timely. Thirdly, we are lobbying in support of the 2021 House and Senate State Foreign Operations Appropriations Bill. This annual legislation appropriates $3.3 billion in military aid and assistance to Israel. While this obviously helps Israel maintain its security, this legislation also mandates that more than 75% of this aid must be spent in the United States. Thus, it directly benefits our own country as well. Moreover, the bill ensures Israel is best positioned to provide the U.S. with vital intelligence and exceptional military-related technological advancements, which help protect American troops and create a true safe zone for American servicemen and women in the Middle East. Again, these bills ensure that Israel has what it needs from us to defend itself, thereby making both Israel and America stronger and safer. Now, this is where things look different for our members this year. In lieu of meeting face-to-face with your congressmen and congresswomen, momentarily you're going to get your CUFI action alert via email. And I want to make sure that you understand, even though you're not having your face-to-face meeting, how important your voice is on behalf of Israel and the Jewish people. In the past, Christians United for Israel's millions of members have been pivotal in the advancement of several key legislative victories despite not having face-to-face meetings in Washington, D.C. For instance, in May 2018, after you, CUFI's members, sent more than 135,000 emails to the White House asking the president to keep his pledge to move our embassy, the United States formally opened its embassy in Jerusalem. Likewise, after CUFI's members sent more than 1 million emails to Congress in support of the Taylor Force Act, which cut off the flow of American tax dollars to the Palestinian Authority until they stopped the pay-to-slay program to terrorists, that legislation was passed and signed into law. Again, in March of 2018, after a month-long CUFI lobbying campaign, in a historic and courageous move by the Trump administration, the U.S. recognized Israeli sovereignty over the Golan Heights. And most recently, CUFI's lobbyists and grassroots activists played a vital role in the passage of the Never Again Education Act, as Senator Rosen mentioned. These are just a few of the important victories that would not have been possible if it were not for CUFI's 8 million committed members defending Israel and supporting the Jewish people with decisive action for such a time as this. Thank you for doing your part to ensure that Israel is secure and that the relationship between the United States and Israel remains stronger than ever. Now, be on the lookout for your action alert. It's going to come to your email inbox in the next few moments. And if there is only one thing you take away from this session, let it be this: your voice matters. CUFI would not be able to do what it does without you. We are Christians United for Israel, and we believe that when your cause is Israel, you cannot fail. So thank you for taking action today, and God bless you for all that you do.
Thank you for participating in the 2020 Virtual Summit. Despite any obstacles that may come our way, our faithful support of Israel and the Jewish people is making a tangible difference for Zion's sake. Please make plans to join us next year for the summit in Washington, July 18 through 20th, 2021. Join thousands of pro-Israel Christians as we gather in our nation's capital to speak up for Israel. We will let our elected officials know that millions of Christian Zionists in America stand with Israel and make our voice heard for Zion's sake. Register starting today for $50 at CUFI.org/summit using the promo code PRE21.